5 moon nights when your shadow vibration skyrockets to its highest. There are nights when the moon becomes more than just a celestial body. It becomes a mirror, not just of the sun's reflection, but of your shadow. And if you've ever found yourself sleepless, stirred, or strangely emotional during certain moon phases, you're not imagining it. You're remembering something ancient, something sacred. That the moon is not passive light, it's a living, breathing frequency portal. And on 5 specific nights across the lunar cycle, your shadow doesn't just show up, it skyrockets. These are the nights where the veil thins, where your hidden self rises, where everything you've repressed, denied, or buried comes out to dance in the moonlight, not to haunt you, but to free you. I've lived through these nights. I've sat in forests under full moons that felt like they were screaming my name. I've been awakened in the middle of the night by dreams so vivid they felt more real than waking life. I've wept under waning moons with no explanation, only to realize later that something ancient was being released through me, some karmic inheritance, some collective emotion, some wound that wasn't even mine. And the first time it happened, I thought I was losing my mind. But I wasn't. I was finding my shadow frequency. And so are you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, most people talk about the moon in terms of manifestation, cycles, and emotions. But they rarely speak of what happens when the moon magnifies your darkness, when it doesn't bring you peace, but reveals your chaos, when it doesn't soothe you, but summons you. These are the nights when your shadow doesn't sneak in through the back door, it kicks it wide open, and if you're not ready, it can feel like you're unraveling. But if you are ready, if you're willing to face what you've hidden from yourself, these nights become gateways. They become initiations into the deepest layer of your spiritual architecture. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's your unintegrated power. It's the part of you that had to be buried so you could survive in a world that only rewards the light. But the moon doesn't play by the world's rules. The moon doesn't care about your image, it cares about your truth. And these 5 moon nights, they are the moments when the moon becomes your most unapologetic teacher, dragging you into your own underworld, not to destroy you, but to reveal what you're really made of. I know this sounds intense. That's because it is. Shadow work isn't a cute trend. It's a deconstruction of your entire identity. It's the fire that burns away the masks. And on these nights, that fire gets lit, whether you're ready or not. So, let's make a pact, you and I. Let's stop running from it. Let's stop pretending that we are only the light. You are both. And the moon knows it. That's why it pulls the tides of your body, your mood, your memory. That's why it stirs your subconscious when you're trying to sleep. It's not trying to disturb you, it's trying to wake you. Have you ever wondered why your dreams get more vivid around the full moon? Why your anxiety spikes during the waning phase, why you get deeply introspective during the dark moon? That's not random, that's resonance. Your shadow responds to lunar fluctuations the way ocean tides respond to gravity. And if you're sensitive, if you're even half awake, you feel it. You know when something is rising. You may not be able to name it, but your body knows, your bones remember, your soul starts whispering things you forgot you once knew. And here's the secret most people miss. When your shadow vibration skyrockets, it's not trying to sabotage your life, It's trying to liberate it. It's trying to show you where you're still playing small, where you're still performing versions of yourself to be liked, accepted, or safe. It's trying to show you the patterns that keep repeating, the wounds that never really healed, the parts of you still think are too much. And in that moonlight, those parts stop hiding. They show up raw, unfiltered, demanding presence. So what do you do when the shadow rises? You don't suppress it, you sit with it. You don't run. You listen. You turn off your phone, light a candle, and ask yourself the kind of questions that don't have easy answers. You write until your hand cramps. You cry without needing a reason. You scream into a pillow. You let your body move the way it wants to move. You get honest, because the moon doesn't care how spiritual you look. It cares how true you are. Let me ask you a question that might sting. When was the last time you allowed yourself to feel without control, to break without fixing, to bleed without bandaging? If your answer is too long ago, then these moon nights are your medicine, because they don't ask you to be polished, they ask you to be real, and in that rawness, something begins to shift, not just in you, but in the field. Your frequency changes, your aura recalibrates, your energy becomes more dense, but in the most powerful way. You become magnetic, coherent, dangerous in the best possible sense. These are the nights when the veil gets thin, not just between you and the spirit world, but between you and yourself, between your conscious identity and your unconscious power, between the you show the world and the you that's been waiting to come home. And when they meet, when shadow and self finally merge, you don't just evolve, you quantum leap. So if you ever find yourself trembling under a moonlit sky, unable to explain why your heart feels like it's breaking and expanding at the same time, you're not broken, you're becoming. You're not crazy, you're correctly aligned with the lunar frequency of shadow resurrection, and that's not something to fear. That's something to worship, because the shadow doesn't rise to ruin you, it rises to reveal what's real. The 5 nights that crack you open, lunar portals that activate your shadow frequency to its highest form. There are 5 nights scattered across the lunar cycle that don't simply ask you to reflect, they demand your full vulnerability. These nights aren't just symbolic, they are portals. They open something ancient in you. They don't knock politely, they crack you open. They shift you from thinking to feeling, from resisting to releasing. And when you know what these 5 moon nights are, when you begin to track them, prepare for them, and honor them, something truly mystical happens. Your life begins to operate on a different frequency. You stop navigating reality through logic and start navigating it through resonance, through rhythm, through the pulse of the cosmos. And that's when you become unshakably aligned with your own shadow power. Let's begin with the first and most obvious, the full moon. Most people think of the full moon as a time of completion, celebration, or manifestation, and yes, that's true on the surface. But if you've ever felt overstimulated, emotionally raw, or even on edge during a full moon, that's no accident. The full moon doesn't just complete, it exposes. It illuminates everything, especially the parts of you you've been trying to hide, your triggers, your insecurities, your unspoken grief. It amplifies emotion to the point that you can no longer bury it. This is usually when your shadow frequency spikes through the roof, because the light reveals the dark. That's the paradox. The brighter the moon, the louder the shadow. And if you can stay present during this intensity, not react impulsively but observe, you'll start to notice patterns. What keeps resurfacing every full moon? What emotions explode to the surface? That's your shadow talking. And it's not just talking, it's teaching. The second night is often overlooked but no less powerful, the waning crescent moon. This is the final sliver of light before the moon disappears completely. It's the descent, the sacred unraveling. On this night, your ego begins to dissolve. Your defenses soften. You might feel deeply tired, even melancholic. But this isn't depression. It's a spiritual exhale. Your shadow frequency here doesn't scream like it does on the full moon, it whispers. It asks questions like, what are you still holding on to that you should have let go of by now? What are you afraid to release because you don't know who you'll be without it? These are the quiet deaths, the inner funerals, the moments when you grieve versions of yourself that no longer serve but still linger. This moon doesn't crack you open with force. It does it with tenderness, if you allow it to. The third night is the new moon, the dark moon, the void. Most people rush to set intentions on this night. They make lists, they manifest, they vision. But the real power of the new moon is not in what you're calling in, it's in what you're willing to sit with in the silence. The shadow frequency here is subtle but potent. Because when there's no light, there's no distraction, no reflection, just you and the void. This is where your deepest fears surface, not because they're attacking you, but because this is the only time they feel safe enough to come out. They know you're finally quiet enough to hear them. Ask yourself, what shows up in the silence? What truths do you avoid when you're busy manifesting? The new moon reveals the foundation of your shadow, and if you build from here, your life won't just look different, it will feel aligned. The fourth night is the first quarter moon, halfway between new and full. This is a night of inattention. You feel the pull between who you've been and who you're becoming, and it's uncomfortable. This is when doubt creeps in, resistance, fear of change. But that's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're on the edge of expansion. The shadow frequency here is activated in the form of sabotage. Old patterns trying to pull you back into the familiar. You'll find yourself repeating loops, picking fights, avoiding your practices. And this is where you must catch yourself, because this moon is testing your resilience. It's asking, will you fold back into your old identity, or will you push through into your power? Only you can decide. And finally, the fifth night, the third quarter moon. The moon is waning again, but this night brings reckoning, reflection, a raw honesty about what's not working. You've seen the full moon's revelations, you've set your new moon intentions, and now it's time to clear the debris. This is the night when your shadow shows up in the form of truth, not romanticized truth, hard truth, the kind that hurts, the kind that humbles. If you're brave enough to listen, if you can drop the spiritual ego and just be with what is, you'll find the wisdom you've been chasing, hidden in the rubble, waiting for you to stop pretending and simply face yourself as you are. These 5 moon nights are not just cosmic events. They are sacred invitations. Each one a different tone, a different lesson, a different mirror. And when you start living in sync with them, tracking them, honoring them, surrendering to them, your life begins to reshape itself without force. You stop chasing healing and start embodying it. You stop fearing your shadow and start partnering with it, because these nights aren't here to hurt you. They're here to reveal the parts of you that are ready to rise. Let me ask you something only your soul can answer. What would change if you stopped resisting your shadow and started listening to it like it was your highest teacher? Because maybe, just maybe, the darkness isn't trying to destroy you, but reveal the power you forgot you had. The rituals of resurrection. How to prepare your body and soul for the shadow surge on lunar nights. If you've ever stood under the moonlight and felt something ancient stirring inside you, then you already know these nights are not ordinary. They are cosmic pulses. They are encoded with frequencies that awaken the parts of you that modern life tries to keep dormant. But awakening isn't something that happens by accident. It's something you prepare for. And when the shadow frequency begins to rise with the lunar tides, there are very specific ways to ready your body, your mind, and your spirit to not just survive the surge, but to resurrect through it. Let's begin with something most people overlook: your nervous system. Your body is not just a vessel, it is a sensorium, a bridge between the unseen and the seen. And when the shadow frequency spikes, especially on those 5 lunar nights, your nervous system becomes the first to speak. It doesn't lie, it doesn't intellectualize, it feels. Restlessness, tightness, a racing heart, cold palms, or the opposite. Numbness, disconnection, fatigue. These are not symptoms to be medicated. These are messages. Your body is saying something is rising, make space. And so the first ritual is not chanting or journaling, it's regulation. Deep breaths in through the nose, slow exhales through the mouth, grounding your feet into the earth. Placing your hand on your chest and saying out loud, I am safe to feel what is surfacing. If you don't prepare the body, the shadow will manifest as chaos. But if you create safety within, the shadow becomes a teacher, not a threat. Then there's your environment. You cannot expect to do sacred work in a space that is cluttered with distraction and artificial noise. The moon's frequency is subtle. It speaks in symbols, sensations, synchronicities. If you're surrounded by digital noise, fluorescent lights, or other people's projections, you will miss the message. So, on these nights, especially the full moon and the dark moon, purify your space. Turn off your devices, light a single candle, not for aesthetics but for focus. Burn herbs like mugwort, sage, or palo santo, not to cleanse the bad but to signal to the unconscious that something sacred is beginning. Play sound frequencies that resonate with the moon's vibration, 432 Hz or 963 Hz. Your space should feel like a temple, even if it's a small corner of your room. You don't need more space, you need more intentionality. And now we turn inward. The inner ritual. This is where the real work begins. Before the moon rises into its peak phase, sit down and ask one question. What part of me is asking to be witnessed tonight? Don't overthink it. Let whatever arises come forward. An emotion, a memory, a thought loop, an image. This is your shadow knocking. And once it shows itself, your job is not to fix it. Your job is to stay, to breathe with it, to make eye contact with your own ghost. You can write it down, you can speak it aloud, you can draw it, scream into a towel, cry on the floor. There is no right way to process what rises, only honest ways. And if you're willing to be honest, the shadow will begin to transform on its own. But here's something most people miss. Aftercare is sacred. Too many people dive into shadow work and forget to integrate. They open the wound and walk away. Don't do that. After the shadow speaks, you must offer yourself something new. A bath with salt and herbs, a warm meal, a loving touch, a blanket, and a silent moment under the stars. You are reparenting your nervous system after an encounter with the deep. You are saying, "Thank you for showing me. I am here now. I will hold this." Integration is not optional. It is the completion of the ritual. And what about community? Should you do this work alone or with others? That depends on your level of sovereignty. If you're still learning how to hold yourself, it can be powerful to be witnessed by someone who sees you without flinching. But don't seek validation, seek mirroring. Someone who can reflect truth without projection. You can also build your own ritual group, even virtually, a circle where each person shares what their shadow revealed on that moon night. This is how we normalize the sacred discomfort of growth. This is how we remember that we are not alone in our unraveling. Let me offer you a question to sit with on your next lunar night. What have you been avoiding that's actually the doorway to your next level of power? The answer may not come right away, but if you build the space, ask the question, and stay present, the moon will reveal it. And when it does, you'll know, not with your mind, but with your body. You'll feel the shiver, the release, the whisper that says, "Yes, this is it. This is what I came here to face." The truth is, these rituals aren't about becoming more spiritual. They're about becoming more real, more embodied, more willing to carry your shadow like a sacred scroll instead of a secret. And when you do that, you don't just survive the surge of shadow, you resurrect through it. You rise not in spite of your darkness, but because of it. So don't wait for the perfect moment. The moon doesn't wait, it moves, and so must you. Moonlight is a mirror, how lunar shadow activation unlocks your true purpose and power. Every moonlit night is a mirror, not just of the sun, but of your soul. Not the curated self you show the world, but the unfiltered self that lives beneath the surface. The raw, trembling, brilliant being you were before life taught you to hide. And when your shadow vibration skyrockets during those 5 sacred lunar nights, it's not just an emotional event. It's not just cosmic energy swirling through your aura. It's a key turning in the lock of your destiny. It's the universe saying, this is where your true power begins. Not in your perfection, but in your presence with what you fear the most. We've been taught to chase purpose as if it's somewhere out there, a mission, a job, a calling with a title and a strategy. But the moon teaches us something older and more primal. Your purpose is not out there. It's in here. It's encoded in your shadow. It's hidden in the very parts of yourself you've rejected, judged, or tried to fix. Because your greatest power is always born from your deepest wound, and each time the moon activates your shadow, it's showing you exactly where your power has been trapped. Think about that for a moment. What if the part of you that feels too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, or too weird is exactly the part of you that carries your unique soul frequency? What if your purpose isn't to rise above your shadow, but to bring your light all the way down into it? To descend into the very thing you think disqualifies you and resurrect it as your gift. This is what lunar shadow work does. It doesn't just heal you, it reveals you. It peels back the layers of performance. It strips away the noise. It silences the false narratives you inherited from a world that fears depth. And in that silence, you begin to hear the truth. You were never broken, you were buried. And the moon is the shovel, the moon is the mirror. The moon is the ritual reminder that your darkness is not a disqualifier, it's a map. So how do you translate shadow activation into real-world purpose? How do you take what you've seen in the moonlight and live it under the sun? You start by looking at what keeps showing up in your life, especially during those 5 moon nights. What emotions repeat themselves? What patterns do you fall into? What thoughts haunt you? These aren't random, they're clues. Your shadow is trying to tell you, this is the place you've been avoiding. This is the place your power has been waiting. If you keep getting triggered around abandonment, maybe your purpose is to guide others through self-belonging. If you've lived through deep loss, maybe your gift is to help others grieve sacredly. If you've felt invisible, maybe your mission is to see others in the way you never were. That you don't need to invent your purpose, you need to remember it. And the fastest path to remembrance is through the shadow. Not by analyzing it, but by feeling it all the way through. Letting it move through your body like a storm. Letting it show you the places where your truth got buried under shame. Letting it guide you back into your body, your breath, your knowing. Moon doesn't give you answers, it gives you access. Access to the parts of yourself you've locked away. And when those parts come home, when you embrace them instead of exiling them, your entire frequency shifts. You become coherent, magnetic, whole. And from that state, you don't have to chase your purpose, you become it. So let me ask you the last and most important question of all. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to be who the world wants you to started and started becoming who your shadow remembers you are? Because that person, the one behind the masks, behind the pain, behind the fear, is the one the world actually needs. That person is the one who can hold space for others, not just with knowledge, but with presence, with lived experience, with embodied permission to be both divine and deeply human. The moonlight will keep rising, the shadow will keep dancing. The question is, will you keep hiding, or will you step into the mirror and meet yourself fully? Because when you do, you don't just find your purpose, you become the portal for others to find theirs. And that is how the moon doesn't just light the sky, it awakens the soul.